Person. I have worked here for this is my 12th year. I'm a senior lecturer in the English department. Um, and for this purpose, I'm also a member of the Restorative Practices Network on campus. So about, I think it was 2020, we went through a 4-day restorative practices network, restorative practices training that included talking circles, and it was right during COVID. So you might have seen talking circles advertised on campus. The Restorative Practices Network is run through the dean of students, and we do them reactively if something happens on campus or in the world that students or faculty staff are struggling with. We do them sometimes just for wellness. We do them for community building. So there's a lot of different ways that we use them. We use them a lot with student orgs and just those kind of places where you think it would naturally fit. But I um, thought they could also be helpful in the classroom. And that's what I started a year and a half ago about. Um, and it kind of goes along with our speaker this morning about engaging students and kind of taking the time to provide that kind of community for them. So I thought I would give this a try. I had 2 classes of freshmen and I had 2 classes of upperclassmen. So I thought I would give it a try and see if it worked, see if it kind of had the results that I wanted. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I did a anonymous survey after, so I got a lot of the feedback that was really helpful for me, and knowing that this was something that I should do on a regular basis in my classroom. So let's see here. So I don't know if you've been to a talking circle, maybe heard about them, but it's rooted in indigenous culture. So anytime that I do a circle, I make sure that I give that reference. Uh, a lot of times, if we do these on campus, we do the land acknowledgement first, and then just kind of explain that this is rooted in indigenous practice. Um, so talking circles are different than listening circles or like town halls. Sometimes people get those confused. Talking circles are just that. It's not designed for like you to give me feedback. It's just designed for everyone to talk. So it's different that way. So I make it, pretty clear that I'm not facilitating as a professor. I'm just facilitating as a circle keeper. So it's just kind of takes away that power differential. Um, Again, like it says, they're not debates. They're not maybe typical classroom discussions, but they allow everyone to have a voice, which is what I like the best about them. Um, so as we go along here, I just, again, like he said this morning, 5 or 8 students, do the majority of the speaking in a classroom, and that's the case whether it's freshmen or upperclassmen, I think. So this just it gives everyone a space. It also encourages really active listening. So um, some classrooms are not big enough to like make an actual circle. Um, I taught down at Berry Hall last year, and the rooms were big enough so you could leave the chairs and make an actual circle. I have found that that is a little bit different than if you make a circle with desks, because you still kind of have that barrier that kind of takes away the intimacy a little bit. So I would say anytime you can, I would do a circle with nothing, um, no desks or anything like that, just sitting in a chair. Um, we use a talking piece. I actually, my wife and I went and picked this out. I had a really cool talking piece that I bought at a restorative justice network or restorative justice, not network, restorative justice conference, and I lost it last time I presented because I was showing it off and apparently left it. So a talking stick can be anything though. Like a lot of bars we use the buffalo, the squishy bison. Um, so you can use a squishy bison. I have forgot the talking piece and used the marker before. I mean, it doesn't matter. I just really thought this looked cool. So this is my new talking piece. But if you've never been to a circle, that's what it's like. You cannot talk unless you have the talking piece in your hand. So you're not trying to figure out what you're going to say. It's not like a debate. It's not like a discussion. You're just, the other students are listening. That's all they're doing. My classes are typically 22 students. That's a pretty big circle, but it definitely works. Works a little better if you have like a Tuesday, Thursday schedule that's 75 minutes as opposed to 50, but it can work in either one. I don't ever go by my slide. It is like one of my big the students always say that. Why do you make slides? You never talk about it. But so these are just the key benefits. And there you go. We've been talking about these in all of our session, mental health and just a sense of belonging and all the things that help students succeed, all those little things. We're in the Dean of Students presentation, and she used the iceberg model for students and everything happening under the surface that we don't see. And that this kind of helps create an environment where we do kind of see some of those things, or we do, I learn a lot about the students that helps me help them better, I think. And then it just kind of promotes that kind of group unity. And that's what I wanted out of it. We have a group of 22 students for 16 weeks. And every once in a while we throw them in groups and kind of, expect them to know each other and work with each other. And they don't. But they do, this way. So like I said, I did it with two freshman classes and two upperclassmen, or upper classes first. And then I've done them every semester since. I think they work the best, or maybe I shouldn't say that. I think they're most important with freshmen, at least my class. Because those are the students who, have been on campus for 2 weeks and think that they're the only ones with a certain set of problems, or they're the only ones that don't know, how to do Blackboard or whatever it is, right? So it just kind of promotes that understanding that these other people are struggling with the same things. I'm not alone. I'm not an imposter. Like, I really do belong here. It helps with solutions. So a talking circle is typically just a prompt, and then you pass the talking piece around the circle and answer the prompt. So it usually starts with something easy, how are you today, or something like that. But for freshmen, the next question is, what is something that you're struggling with right now? So then they go around the circle and talk about what they're struggling. I always make it clear that they can pass if they don't want to speak, but I encourage them to really step out of their comfort zone, and speak. And I have found that 99% of the students do not pass. They speak. So I started with like, well, just easy. What's something you struggle with? And it's like time management, or waking up in the morning, or, I still don't understand Blackboard, or whatever it is, right? But then the next round is like, what is something that you've learned since you've been here in terms of these kind of problems? So then students will say like, I learned that you can go to IT if you have a computer problem, or I learned that, professors aren't scary and you can go to their office hours, or whatever it is. So it's really solution based. And then we do a circle at the end of for my classes, we have 3 units. So we do a circle at the end of every unit. And it just kind of monitors progress. The questions get a little deeper as the semester goes. One thing I always ask is like, what is your why to be here? Like, when it's 0 degrees and you don't want to get out of bed, or you don't want to write my essay, or you don't, it gets hard. College is hard. Why are you here? And, students, I'll just show you some of the responses, but I think students it took a lot of the burden of understanding everything by themselves. And then I got a lot of comments, especially from upperclassmen, and that it gave them a chance to just stop and think about things as opposed to like going from lecture to lecture or just kind of being overwhelmed. It let them breathe a little bit once in a while. Um, so you can see these are some of the responses. I would say they were 90% positive. I've done this about probably 4 semesters now. So I would say 90% positive. Some, say this is a waste of time, but like they think everything I do is a waste of time, probably. So, um, but really good. These were the freshmen. And like I said, I think I don't want to say it's not important for upperclassmen because it is, but I think it's really important for freshmen, especially first semester freshmen. Um, I was talking to Dr. Burt, and she has a daughter in college, and talking about how her daughter is a daughter of 2 professors and still didn't know how to do all these things about college. So like think of like a first gen student, who's trying to figure all that stuff out. So it kind of helps me identify problems. Like I said, I think a really big component is it helps students see that they're not alone in what they're struggling with, right? That like imposter syndrome, or just kind of um, that feeling like everybody knows everything and I don't. Um, so the results overall were similar to freshman classes. I had to sell it to upperclassmen more, right? So I explained the purpose. We're not just taking a day off. Like this is why we're doing this. Especially in like creative classes, they buy into that because they know there's a lot of collaboration and there's a lot of like artistic community that we try to build. So they buy into it. Like compared to like business students, it's harder to sell. They're more like black and white. Like just teach me what I need to know and let me go. Um, but they always kind of end up participating. It just kind of becomes contagious, I think. So like I said, I have very few people that pass or um, don't participate. It just doesn't happen as much as I thought it would. I kind of like if you look at all the comments at the bottom, it took some pressure off me because I sometimes get caught up in my own mind. I do that all the time, right? Think of what I'm going to say, like think place in case I get called on, or in case we do whatever activity I'm trying to kind of articulate what I'm going to do already. This just lets them sit. Um, so these are some of the sample prompts that I've used. You can use any prompt to prompt a circle. And these can be tailored for faculty and staff. This isn't just a student exercise. I think it's really good for departments to do these, or even units, because again, it builds that community. That's the whole point of these kind of proactive things. But these are, especially you can see how these would be really helpful for freshmen, right? The one about pride, I do every single time. Like, what are you proud of? You might be struggling with all these things, but you're doing all these things too, right? So it just kind of sometimes puts things in perspective. Or they learn from each other. Like, what's one habit or routine that supports your learning? Like, what have you learned how to do? I learned that I had to get a planner and write down all my assignments. That's something simple for me, right? Not so simple all the time. So I learned that, or I learned that my academic advisor can help me pick classes, or I learned that, residence life has this program. A lot of times we talk about student orgs, like finding your people. Like, how do you find your people? How do you become part of the campus? So those are just some sample prompts. At this point, there's kind of 2 ways we can go. We can either do a circle if you want to see what a circle is like, or the last time I did it, we did Q&A, and that took up all the time. Just people kind of asking questions about kind of the concept or the outcomes or anything like that. Do you all have you guys been in a circle before? No? Would that be helpful? I want to do whatever's most helpful. This is like, I love circle. Oh, should we do a circle? Okay. Can we take like a couple seconds and maybe just go over there? I don't know what the Zoom people will do though. Why don't how about I just walk us through like an actual circle and what that would be, and then we can just do questions. Um, if you've never been to a circle, I really recommend you go, even if it's just to check it out. We do them on campus once a month at least. Sometimes they're targeted at certain populations, but we do them all the time. So I would just really recommend trying it. But a circle is just what it sounds like. You get in a circle. I really explain it over and over and over so that they understand the guidelines, they understand what's expected of them, they understand the purpose. One of the first weeks of class, we do kind of core values that we want our class to adopt. Or values, values that they think are important to success. And then these are some of the ones from last year. We had academic integrity, curiosity, collaboration, they're all sticking together. Compassion, open-mindedness. So those are the we adopt those as a class, and they usually come up with similar ones across the board. But then I have those for each class. So those are in the center, just kind of grounding us to what we're doing. And that's why if you use desks, it definitely works, but not as well because you have all that in between. But I just talk about, again, like the expectations. You can't talk unless you have the talking piece. You talk for a minute or two, and then you pass. But I talk a lot about the building community part and why that's important. And then again, I mention it, but I make it very clear that I'm not the professor in that situation. Like we are all just equal. We're having a conversation. So I might facilitate the prompts, but I'm not running the circle. And that kind of takes away the pressure a little bit. And then, like I said, I do the land acknowledgement to make sure that we, understand where this comes from. And then you just start the prompts and you just go around. Sometimes I change the prompts based on the answers that we're getting. And, so sometimes we talk about something else. But I start out pretty easy, like, how is your day? Or, something along those lines. And then we get deeper and deeper and deeper. And like I said, I do 3 or 4. I usually do the first one on week 2. So they're kind of, got the first week anxiety's gone and they're just, a little bit kind of settled in, but not completely. And then I do them about, it would be probably week 8, week 12, and then we do them at the end. Yes.
What would you think about doing topic specific circles that are topical for that particular class, like a science class or a music class, or would it work as a topic?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. This semester I have a creative writing class and I have a business writing class. Like they couldn't be more different. So I will have, I don't teach business writing very often. So I will come up with different prompts for that may appeal to those students a little more than my creative writers who are all about creativity and artistry and things like that. So I would ask different questions, but yeah, I think it very, very, very much could be topics. I think it could address, things that are happening on campus or in the world as well. I haven't done those as much in the classroom, but they certainly could work.
I have both upper level and business students. So I don't know if you have any tips for engaging them and getting them to buy into that process.
Yeah. I really focus on the sense of community. Okay, like we're going to help each other succeed. Even in business, students. We're going to be peer reviewing each other's resumes. We're going to be doing this collaborative work. So the more that you kind of know each other, the better you can do that work. And if you tie it to their success, they seem to buy into it a little bit more than if it's just, we're going to build community and have a better semester that way. But if you can make it relevant to them, I think they buy into it a lot more. Ask me after week 2 with my business students, and I don't know what I'll say, but no, even them though, they're not as creative, so I wouldn't maybe have those kind of creative prompts. But the success aspect is the same. So together we're going to succeed over these next 16 weeks, and this is going to help us do that, I think.
Hi, I have a relatively small major, so we have a strong cohort kind of feel. So when I teach upperclassmen, and this is what I teach, um, how would you change some of those prompts, or would you, or because they already pretty much feel connected to one another because they've been together, but they may not know all of them may not know each other as well as they think.
Yeah, I mean, I think in that case, you could do some deeper prompts that are maybe more central to that group. But I would probably do some prompts that are maybe more personal, so they do get to know each other, or maybe just kind of deeper into who they are, who they want to be, kind of thing. But yeah, I think it still could work because you're right. We sometimes assume we know each other and we don't. So I would still kind of use that as a community building aspect. That makes sense.
What if you're interested in doing a circle in your classroom, but you sort of feel like you just had one session on this and you're not really sure if you really want to try something that new and scary?
Then I would reach out to the Restorative Practices Network and see if somebody like me can come into your classroom and maybe do this first circle for you. Or you could, come visit my classroom sometime. But I would be happy to do circles for classrooms. I think it's a really underutilized tool that I would love more people to do. So that would be my response. The Restorative Practices Network is about 10, 15 people. So I know that they would be happy to either explain the process or conduct a circle for you. I know that I would do that.
I just have a couple of questions on facilitation. So Emily and I teach in classes that are about 50 to 80 students. So what would you say is like the max size for a circle? And then my second question is how do you move someone along if they're taking more than their 1 to 2 minutes?
That is the question. Yeah. I've had that it happen in one case. And it was with a student and it was clear that the student was experiencing things beyond the scope of the circle. But we kind of let them have their say. And then at some point, just said, I would love to continue this conversation with you, but I do want to give everyone a chance, so you just kind of subtly push it along. But then I would certainly follow up. If somebody needs 10 minutes of a circle time, they're experiencing something, that is a crisis. So, but I would just kind of say, you know what, I would love to hear more from you. Please, let's make an appointment after class, but we have to, move it around. Because that is, people like to talk.
And then how about max size for kind of facilitating a circle?
Max size, I would say like about 20-ish is a really big circle. I mean, like I think it depends on time. When I have, Tuesday, Thursday classes, we can do more rounds of a circle because it's 75 minutes. So, but if you have 50 or 80, if there's a way you could split it up into 2 or something like that and then rotate, I think anything over like 20, 25 is pretty large. And part of the issue is you lose students because it takes so long to get around that then they kind of get bored with the answers, I think. So, I don't know, I'd say 20, 25.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you spend your entire class period on this.
Yes.
And so you write that in at the beginning of the semester, I assume then. And so they know to expect that on that day.
Yep.
And so that said, going off of your response then, how many people just choose not to show up on that day?
I haven't had that happen. I have an attendance policy and a participation policy, and they just kind of go with it that way. You know, for instance, like random journal entries, you get a point. So if you're not there, you lose the point, you know. So I haven't had that happen. That's a good question, though. I think the more that they buy in at the beginning, then they don't do that. They kind of look forward to it as a break, you know, like, okay, we don't have to write an essay today. We're just gonna, you know, and they kind of look forward to that. But I think that first circle is so important to sell it right and not make it seem like I'm just doing something for, you know, the heck of it.
I've also seen where a class would just do like one question just as an icebreaker type of thing at the beginning instead of using up a whole class period. So, I mean, there's like a lot of flexibility in how your class might want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you include in like your learning objectives for the class that there's going to be any kind of like connection with each other for that
Yes.
community building? So that's an expectation for the class.
That's an expectation for the class. Yeah. You know, all of the essays are peer reviewed. We do group work a lot. So I do explain that, like, this is going to help us do all these other things better. And then, yeah, I mean, I think it's like any class, if they can understand how it helps them or how it applies to them, they're going to do it. So it's just kind of, bringing it back to like that success piece. Like, the more we work together, the more we're going to all succeed in this class. And then I think they buy into it. I haven't done it with larger classes than 22, so I don't know. It's still possible, but yeah, that would be a little bit different. Okay. Yeah, I think just like splitting up the classes with it. Are there other questions just even about talking circles on campus, like the ones that we do for staff and faculty? I mean, they're not just, this isn't just a student tool, but you know, you can use it to build community or address issues in any group on campus could use that. You could use it if there's conflict. You could use that to kind of express everybody's feelings. I haven't done that in the classroom yet. I haven't had to, but
Can you go a little bit more in depth about the expectations and guidelines that you describe at the beginning?
yes. The expectations and guidelines, that's a very good question. The expectations and guidelines are pretty easy. It's, you know, listen with an open mind and you know, be present while everybody's here. If you do use desks, I just make sure there's nothing on the desks, so it's literally just them and the circle. But yeah, it's listen with an open mind, you know, speak from your heart and be honest and that's about it. And then there's the rules of you talk when you have the talking stick, you know, 1 or 2 minutes. But it's mostly the like listen with an open mind, you know, speak from your heart, like share of yourself. And that's why I do tell people that, you know, you can pass if you want to. Like this is not a mandatory thing. But like I said, most students don't. So it's mainly that like kind of the purpose, you know, listen and learn, but also just, you know, it's pretty easy. You don't speak unless, you know, the talking stick is in your head. Or talking piece. And like I said, you can use anything for that. I forget mine more than I don't. So then it's like, but yeah, I mean, I think if you kind of ground your classes in like the concepts of like collaboration and respect and those kind of things, you just kind of bring those into the circle. So it's mainly the kind of just the logistics that I've had to really use track. But this is a cool one. I haven't used this one before. Somebody got a really cool talking piece from off. I don't know where I left it at my last. I would really recommend you attend a circle just on your own. I mean, we do have them a lot. If you see restorative practices networks or you see talking circles, we have them, and sometimes there's one person there and sometimes there's 10, and it just depends on what the need is. But I think you could adopt them in your departments for faculty, staff, as well as students. I think circles are powerful. I've never left the circle not feeling better or different. So I just really believe in the power.
Where can we find out when those talking circles are happening on campus?
The Restorative Practices Network is housed under the Dean of Students. So usually, emails go out, but that's like, we all get so many emails that a lot of times those get missed. So we do try to advertise them, sometimes physically with, flyers or things, but they should always be on the Dean of Students website. Yeah, we'll work on that if they're not on there, but yeah, we with the emails is like the primary way that we do that. But yeah, that misses a lot of people sometimes. So yeah, we're always looking for new people who want to be part of the Restorative Practices Network. Whether that's through talking circles or just helping us plan things. There's different roles that you can take. Restorative practices is a whole other thing too, besides talking circles, so that it deals with a lot of different things. But we are always looking for people who want to be part of the network or want to learn how to be a circle keeper or want a circle in their department. You can reach out to the Dean of Students. We have a Restorative Practices Network email. Or just reach out to me. I'd be happy to point you in the right direction or give you, usually we plan a semester at a time. And then we add circles that pop up, for, different things that happen in the world. We add circles. But yeah, I would suggest checking it out and just, seeing what it's all about firsthand. But I would love to share it with your departments or your classrooms or wherever you think it would fit. So please let me know if you want a circle. No, I just think they're really successful. So other questions? If there are questions, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you. I'm in the English department. But I'd be happy to chat about circle or, set something up if you want one. But I think they address a lot of the issues we're talking about today. So